All right, everyone. Hello and welcome. My name is Jason Levine. Second to last presentation of my day. And it's a pleasure for the next 25 minutes to talk to you about what is coming next in this new version being revealed here this week of Premiere Pro CC. So we're a couple minutes over time, so I'm just going to have to dive right into it. And we're going to start by talking about some of the things that we've done, first of all, just with some UI consistency across applications. Now, if you've been using Photoshop and Illustrator for a long time, you'll know that we had these, what we call task-oriented workspaces in the UI. We've now added these to this next version of Premiere Pro. And again, this is just the idea that we have these specific workspaces, easily accessible, docked at the top there, so that you can always get to them very quickly, no matter what type of workflow you're actually performing. In this case, we're going to focus a lot on color, and as you may have heard some of my other colleagues talk about earlier, we're saying, and even on our documentation, that creativity is getting a lot more colorful, because we've added a new panel in this next version of Premiere Pro called the Lumetri Color Panel. And the idea behind this was to really reimagine color workflows for editors. You know, we've had a lot of color tools in Premiere Pro. We've had the workflow with SpeedGrade. But as we talked to editors all around the world, they really said, you know, maybe I might not be a colorist. I'm not comfortable with wheels. Yes, I use curves and fast color. But if I just had tools like I might have in Lightroom or in Camera Raw, I could do more. I could get started faster. And maybe if I had more presets, it would allow me to understand how looks and LUTs are built and really, again, stylize my content much more quickly, much more efficiently. Well, we've been listening. So the first thing I'm going to show you here, and we'll come back to this one, this is something I've been asking for, well, since the dawn of Camera Raw and Lightroom. And that is to have an equivalent of the Develop module for Premiere Pro, for video. And now if you look here in the basic corrections section of our Lumetri Color Panel, that is exactly what you have. But this is not just the code from Lightroom dropped into Premiere. No. Again, it's reimagined, redesigned specifically for video and for editors in mind. Who uses Lightroom and Photoshop in here? Do we like this? Let me hear it, Vegas. It's the last day. Thank you. All right? And we're going to come back to that in just a second. But remember that now. If you feel comfortable in Lightroom working on photos, color correcting on photos, you can now implement these same techniques using the same kind of sliders here in Premiere Pro. But we talked about getting creative with color and having more presets and giving you more accessibility to quick sort of color stylized looks. And that's exactly what we're bringing to you here. So in this particular shot, this was some footage shot by Devin Graham, a.k.a. Devin Supertramp. He was presenting here earlier in the week. Crazy footage, these kids jumping out of hot air balloons, no helmets, really no protection, like a single bungee cord and always holding GoPros while they're doing it. And this is like an 18-frame rewind, this particular scene here. We really wanted to give this kind of a particularly stylized look. So let me wind back, play a little bit of this, and then I'll show you what we're going to do. Here we go. All right, so this little section right here, how crazy is this guy, right? Okay, so we really wanted to have some kind of cool, very stylized color. Well, again, I could play around with the color wheels, and you can see we've got them down here. Again, redesigned, reimagined to feel a lot more like what you might see in SpeedGrade. But instead now I'm going to turn directly to my looks. And we'll see we have a whole series of looks, some of which you may have seen in SpeedGrade, lots of new ones. And for this particular one, I think I'm going to choose this Fuji Kodak, which I think happens to look really, really nice on there. Ah, yeah, quite beautiful. And then I can make some adjustments. First and foremost, very essential, we've got an intensity slider. So you can adjust the intensity of the look on your footage with a single slider here. Faded film is going to do just that. It's going to simulate the look of that kind of faded film, sort of grainy, slightly washed out, give it, again, a very kind of stylized look there. We've also got sharpen, vibrant, saturation, again, reimagined from Lightroom Camera Raw there, as you'd expect. And maybe I'll choose my highlight tint here and just kind of warm it up ever so slightly like that. Again, really nice, really beautiful color. Wind this back and very quickly create a very stylized look. All right? Pretty sweet. Okay, so that's leveraging new looks and the creative part of the Lumetri Color Panel. But what if we want to really dive down into sort of, again, a lot of those basic corrections and turn something like this. This is another piece of footage shot by Devin Supertramp. and give it a more cinematic look, kind of cool it off, maybe add a vignette, maybe kind of really pump up some blues in there, and just really cool this whole thing off very easily. Well, I'm going to show you how we can do that. Now, we can apply these to individual files. However, I want it to be applied across multiple clips. So for this, I'm going to apply it to an adjustment layer. So on the adjustment layer, I'm going to come over here. Let's go back to our basic corrections. And again, one of the things I love about this is that we have something new here, which you may have seen in SpeedGrade, input LUTs. Now, we all know that in whether you shoot DSLR or Red or Arri Alexa, ultimately you shoot flat, right? We shoot flat so that way when you go into grade, you can then add color on top of it, right? That's what gives you the latitude. If you've already got all this color baked in and you start adding color, you might already have crushed blacks, popped whites. It's difficult. You're going to end up with something that doesn't look so great. Well, I'll be the first to tell you, I tend to shoot when the moment just, when it happens, right? When it comes to me and I want to shoot something, and a lot of times because I do a lot of landscape photography and I have a particular picture style that I like, I shoot DSLR with a Nikon D800, I sometimes forget to go into my completely flat, neutral picture style. So last year, we introduced camera patches, profiles for all of these various cameras. We worked with all of these manufacturers to actually get the LUTs for those cameras to flatten out the image before you grade. Now, they're all contained in Premiere Pro in the Lumetri color panel, and again, organized in such a way as you'd expect. It's the first thing you can apply. If your footage is already flat, of course, you don't have to use these, but the idea is you can apply one of these and then begin your grade. So this is an extremely welcome addition to the Lumetri color panel and something that can really save the day and just, again, save time from having to play around with levels and some of the other effects in Premiere if that's just not something you're very comfortable with. First, I'm going to come over here to our temperature control. Just having this alone is such a welcomed addition because, again, I can warm it up here or I can cool it down. Let's go ahead and cool this off a little bit. We'll readjust our tint, increase our contrast, maybe increase the shadows, pop the whites a little bit here, drop the blacks like this, maybe just a little bit of saturation. And then I can come down to my curves. You'll see we've got some new RGB curves in here. And then under hue saturation curve, I'm going to plot a little bell curve on here. Again, just to kind of punch up the blues a little bit more. And then something that people have been asking for, gosh, I don't even know for how many years now, a native vignette inside of Premiere Pro CC. Yes, I know, silent, yes, don't even be shy. It's the last day. Oh, it took so long. But we did it right. And if this looks, again, like the one that you've seen in Lightroom, yes, it is just redesigned, reimagined for video. So let's go ahead and apply our vignette here. I'll zoom back out. Let's adjust our feather like this, just the midpoint too, and the roundness. Maybe just a little bit more. Our screens aren't exactly calibrated here. Okay, that should be good. Perfect. Wind it back. Go to our effects controls, because what I also want to point out, don't forget, Carl Soule was just talking about uninterrupted preview in After Effects. Well, don't forget that we also have uninterrupted playback in Premiere Pro. And this is just kind of showing you the incredible performance with the Lumetri color panel, all of those different panels, all of those different settings, and we can enable or disable this color, and playback never stops. Beautiful real-time performance, and that's really the essence of the Lumetri color panel. Do we like that, Vegas? Yes. Finally. All right. So, color. So much happening with color. So much that we actually wanted to bring it to some mobile technology currently under development. If we can switch over to my mobile device, thank you. I'm very happy today to show you a new app, again, under development, called Project Candy. And Project Candy is going to allow you to extract color and light the way you see it. Okay? You're actually making a connection with an original time and place. Now, not that we'd necessarily want to create the look of the trade show feel, but you're seeing all these color bubbles, and what these represent here, we're actually measuring hue and volume at different hue angles. Each bubble represents a different hue angle. We've got the brighter colors at the top, the darker colors at the bottom. So if I wanted to just snap kind of a look right here, now I'll come back to talking a little bit more about how this works in just a second before we apply it to anything, and we'll call this Trade Show Last. That sounds very, very final. Trade show Thursday. Okay. All right. All right. And you'll see that it says you've made a look, because this is actually creating a look. But more importantly, this is a 3D LUT. That's right. This is actually generating a 32 by 32 by 32 dot cube. Talk about that in a moment too. View my library. Where is this going? What library? Well, for those of you using Photoshop and Illustrator already, you'll know that you have CC libraries today, right? And you even have shared libraries. You can drop graphic assets, you can drop text styles, you can drop color swatches. Well, now we are bringing CC libraries and shared libraries to Premiere Pro, to After Effects, and to Premiere Clip, our mobile app for editing video on the go. So here, these looks are actually being placed into a shared library that I have with my colleague Bronwyn. Wherever she is right now, she can see this look, Trade Show Thursday, pop up there. So let's go back here for a second. So one of the things you can do, and you'll notice, you might be thinking, well, so is this just applying some kind of a tint? Well, it's not a tint, because you can actually see it's not messing about with the white balance. This is actually performing what we call a mid-tone shift. So the white balance, the way that you white balance the image, is intact. And again, we can kind of move the color bubbles around here. If I don't want something that's quite so red but still warm, I can change to a different hue angle and see what it's going to look like over top of my footage. I actually happen to have, this is some footage also shot by Devin Supertramp. I can adjust the intensity here by holding down on the video. Here's the before, here's the after, maybe back it off just a little bit. You could import any of your own stills, you can import additional video here and see what it's going to look like. Go ahead and OK that one. But here's the coolest thing about this. Again, we're talking about extracting color and light the way you see it. An emotional connection to time and place, time of day. So, of course, a day and a half ago we had that crazy end of days dust storm here. Not the best look for film, although you might want that one. But that morning, before all that happened, which is very typical of the desert, there was a really beautiful sunrise, which I happened to catch right outside my window. So here's me at around 6:15 a.m. 2 days ago, staring out my window at the Encore, looking at the Wynn Hotel. And from that, again, I have this connection always to that Vegas sunrise. And I can now create a LUT from this sunrise. I can apply it to my footage. I'm going to go ahead and name this. I'll call this Vegas Rise. Okay? And once again, it saves that to my library, which I can now share. And if we go back to Premiere Pro for just a second here, to my desktop, you can drag and drop those from our Libraries panel onto your clips. Okay, so the other ones are coming in right now. There's Trade Show Thursday that we just created moments ago. Give it a second, and the other one will populate there with our Wi-Fi here. But from within the Lumetri color panel, if you drag those onto a clip, you're able to actually export all the segments of this panel as a .look file to be used in After Effects, Premiere Pro, Premiere Clip. You can actually even use .look files on adjustment layers in Photoshop for stills images. Or, as mentioned, you can take this look, export it as a .cube, and you can give it to your colorist who might be using something else, right? So this is an amazing way to, again, capture that emotional connection, you know, color and light the way you see it, time of day, original time and place, and apply that look to your footage and share that in your libraries in Premiere Pro and After Effects CC. Pretty cool? Yeah? All right, so this one's coming to you too when all of this stuff eventually gets released. All right, so moving on here. We've got about 10 minutes. We're doing good for time. One of the other things that we wanted to focus on this release were improvements to audio, specifically audio workflows. And here we have a timeline, a mixed timeline that's got lots of different audio in it, and you can even see down here I have an interleaved 5.1 file, a multi-channel, basically 5.1 surround file. Now, in previous versions of Premiere, if you wanted to rearrange the output of the channels in this multi-channel file in the Premiere Pro timeline, we didn't make it so easy for you. That's all I really have to say about that. Well, now we have. by adding a new audio matrix that will allow you to very easily patch and audition all of the channels in an interleaved file. Again, if these are all separated as stems, no big deal, we can route them wherever. But when we're talking interleaved, as many of our cameras now capture 4-channel and 8-channel audio along with the MXF video, routing it inside the app before it just wasn't eloquent, and we wanted to make it better. So if you go up to right-click or control-click here, audio channels, you'll now see that you have a very simple matrix to, again, reroute the actual native channel to a particular output or speaker. The other cool thing about this, and actually the thing that I think is the coolest about this, is this preview capability, because this is going to allow you to actually preview the content, each track, each channel of the interleaved file without having to hear everything else. So for instance, if I can even scrub through it. So let me grab the playhead here, just kind of go to the middle. So here's the left channel by itself. So we've got some bass and drum there. Here's the right channel. All right, and here's the center channel. And again, this would allow us to hear, oh, okay, like there's the voice, discrete, there's no bleed. I know that everything is discretely in the center. And now you actually know, because you don't have labels here on your interleaved file, oh, what's where does it need to go? How am I trying to reroute this? So, small thing, but very, very useful, flexible audio matrixing now, something you've been asking for a long time, and we're really glad to be able to bring that to you in this release. Another thing that we're bringing to you in this release deals with non-render technology between Premiere Pro and Audition. So we've had something called dynamic link between Premiere Pro and After Effects for many, many years now, right? That's the ability to send content over to After Effects non-destructively. You can have your After Effects comp inside Premiere Pro as a dynamically linked composition, and you only have to render at the end. And this can go both ways, one way at a time, but it can go both ways. So we have this non-render workflow, with After Effects. About 18 months ago, or a year and a half ago, 18 months, year and a half, they're the same thing. I know that. 18 months ago, we introduced direct link to Adobe SpeedGrade from Premiere, which is a color grade non-render workflow, meaning that we can take all this content here. By the way, this is also shot by Devin Supertramp. This is from Guatemala, shot on Red Dragon 6K. Send it over to SpeedGrade, no rendering involved. Do your grading, send it back to Premiere, no rendering involved, and only render at the end. Brilliant. So of course, everyone said, well, you have all this non-render capability. We still have to render preview videos to Audition to finish our audio? That just seems, why? Well, it took us a little while, but we got there. And now we're very happy to announce that under Edit in Adobe Audition, we have the ability now to send your video as a dynamic link. You now have dynamic link video streaming from Premiere to Audition. So you no longer have to render out a preview. You still can render a video preview if you so desire. And again, if you're working in 720p, 1080p, your timeline isn't all that long. Okay, I mean, our render is very fast, right? It's the Mercury engine. We can use OpenCL or CUDA acceleration to speed up the render. But now you don't have to. You can use dynamic link video streaming. Now, you can choose to render audio clip effects. I won't do that because this is a finishing workflow. So I'm going to apply any and all effects that I want in Audition. I would recommend the same for you, quite frankly, just because you have more options there. What I do want, however, is to send clip volume keyframe metadata, because as you can see here, we've got some fades on all these audio clips, and I want those preserved non-destructively. So those will appear in Audition non-destructively. So let's go ahead and do this. Send it over there. We'll call this Guatemala Thursday. Click OK. It prepares the sequence data. It is going to render out the audio here because, again, this is a finishing workflow, but the video remains live. Creates the sequence for us. And now, native 6K, 4K, 1080p, whatever the format, doesn't matter because it's coming from Premiere. So whatever you do to this in Premiere, that's what you will see. All of our fade handles, as you can see, are preserved. Okay? The nice thing about working with fades and crossfades in Audition is simply that you have, again, just more flexibility in the actual curve itself and just kind of a better visual indicator of how they're applied. And then you have all the mixing capabilities inside Audition as well. Now, the other nice thing that people have been asking for is, while this is great, I really would love to be able to have this video on a secondary monitor by itself, and now you can do that in Audition as well. So thank goodness that's there too. The other thing that I just want to show you here, which you can leverage in this workflow that I find very useful, don't forget you also have this same meter in Premiere Pro, but with all that's going on these days, still, even now and here at NAB, the TC Electronic Loudness Radar meter, so that you can monitor your audio's playout levels to ensure that you are within broadcast standards, right? Whether it's ETU, IBU, what have you. Of course, you have complete control over all of your settings. I think I kind of manually set this for E85 yesterday. And if I were to play this back, you can already see, again, this is a finishing workflow, so I'm the mixer, I'm finishing, and we're supposed to be at minus 24 LUFS, and we are totally outside of legal limits, right? So that's the idea. Now we can remix, we can deliver a finished final mix here back to Premiere Pro when we render out the final project in Adobe Media Encoder, and we're going to know, based on this and some of the other tools in Audition, that it falls within legal limits. Okay? We've really done a lot in Audition to allow you to conform and tweak your audio to those current loudness broadcast standards, no matter where you're broadcasting in the world. Okay, but back to Premiere Pro. We've got 5 more minutes here. 2 more things to show you. We're always wanting to showcase a little, what I like to call a little sprinkling of Adobe magic, and these next 2 features are really going to highlight that. So again, this Guatemala clip is going to air, and essentially we have 59 seconds and 23 frames. It's a 1-minute spot, right? So the broadcast is, okay, it's got to be 59, 23, right? Or 59 seconds, 23 minutes, yes. Okay. So when I'm looking at the end here, we're like 3 seconds over, right? Which is always the case. So what do? So you go back and you try and find moments of minimal visual activity, and you try and find, if it's an interview, an area where maybe, here's 6 frames where I can cut out a bit of a pause. I don't want to cut out too much because that might change the character of the speaker. You basically start going through manually to cut 4 frames here, 8 frames here, 10 frames here, subtly so that it doesn't change the feeling, but just gets you down to that fixed duration that you need to deliver to your broadcaster. Well, now coming in this next version of Premiere Pro and Adobe Media Encoder, in the Effects tab under the Export Settings dialog, we have something here called the Time Tuner. And the Time Tuner will allow you to automatically set a target duration, and within up or down 10% will automatically conform to your set duration. And it's going to look for all of those things I just told you, areas of minimal visual activity, long pauses, silent sections, a few frames here, a few frames here, and allow you to deliver very quickly, automatically, something at the exact duration that you need, plus or minus 10%. And typically in our testing here, and I personally have been using this for the last few months while we've been developing this software, anywhere from around 2 to 6%, you just have to try it. It will amaze you. You're asking, how? Tell us how. I don't know. You just have to try it. It really is quite something. And lastly, Adobe Magic. It wouldn't be a release if we didn't have something that really changes the way you think about editing. So here we have an interview with my friend and colleague, Jacob Rosenberg, now a very successful, well-known director. You may know that he did the Waiting for Lightning film last year. We actually featured it on the booth here, fantastic film about Danny Way. And they cut this interview together with Jacob. And like myself, Jacob has, sometimes when he's giving an interview, a lot of dramatic pausing for effect. So when they cut the interview, there were sections that, because this little piece here was very short, normally we would go to B-roll because they were jump cuts, right? So just take a look here and you'll see what I mean.
I think Mike represents an idea that anyone can be a part of something.
So that's what we wanted to get across. This whole bit is 6 seconds. So there's no real opportunity to cut to B-roll here. This was kind of an emotional part of the delivery of this interview. We tried crossfades, it didn't work. We tried to do other things, it just didn't work. Well, about a year ago, I guess 6 months ago, we sneaked a feature at Adobe Max called Morph Cut, which would analyze frames before and after, pixels before and after, and actually smooth out and morph the transitions to appear seamless, removing the jump cut, removing the harshness of the jump cut. Now, we all deal with jump cuts. Jump cuts are quite stylistic. We see them all the time today. But this is where the Adobe magic comes into play. So I'll go into our effects, and I'm simply going to drag some morph cut transitions over the transitions here on our edit. And you'll see that familiar bar here analyzing in the background if you've ever applied if you've ever applied warp stabilizer. Anybody saw what happened there? I just rewound myself. Warp stabilizer, you're going to see the same analysis, okay? This is after 4 days, by the way. It's still going on. So here we are. We've now applied the morph cut transition. I can wind back and hit play and take a look.
I think Mike represents an idea that anyone can be a part of something.
Okay, now you know what? Just because, I'm just going to render this real quickly. This isn't out yet. If it were out already, it would be ready. Just so this is totally smooth so you can really see the genius
I think
behind
Mike
this.
represents an idea that anyone can be a part of something.
Yeah. Your silence says it all. Yes. And my friends, that is all the time I have. So much more coming to these versions of CC. It's coming soon. You will love it. If you have more questions, please visit my colleagues at the other end of the booth. I will see you next time. Have a great rest of your NAB. Thank you.